Hey, what's going on YouTube? Shane here. Hey, we're back with a review. This one's gonna be a little bit different than the last review we did. So the last review was on the Mark 18, and today is gonna be quite a bit off from that. So I know a lot of the guys that are gun enthusiasts, you guys are also truck enthusiasts, off-road enthusiasts, and have, generally speaking, other hobbies as well. And so I just wanted to bring this review to the channel. That way, if any of you guys are considering doing these things, you guys can kind of take from my opinion today and hopefully make a better decision on your guys' end and what you want to do. So today we are going to be going actually over shocks on the truck. And what shocks? We're going to be going over the Vertex performance shocks from Rough Country. Now, I opted to go the Vertex route. I felt like it was worth a try. These were $799 versus $1,500 for the competitors being King and Fox. I'm not saying that they're better or worse or any of the above. I don't have any experience with the Fox. I don't have any experience with the Kings. But I at least want to give you my opinion on these and how I feel like they perform for almost half the money. So I guess let's get into it. Let's unbox it, and once we get done unboxing it, I will go over kind of what I do with my truck and why I went the route that I did. So I'll talk to you about that here in just a minute, and I'll show you my truck and kind of some of the things that I've done to it, and we'll go from there. So starting off, this thing open. So these are 2.5-inch reservoir shocks. See if I can get this off here. I'm gonna tilt the camera down so you guys can see a little bit better what I got going on here. So these are 2.5-inch reservoir shock. Get this guy out of the way. All right, so here's what we got. So it's got your upper reservoir, it's got your braided line. Let me see if I can get this thing off of here so you guys can see it. Cut this off. Okay, so here's a shock. Pretty simple installation. There is a bracket in the box that this will mount to that goes on top of these two bolts. So I'm gonna tilt this camera back up here real quick. Okay, so these two bolts here will obviously go through the top. I'm not gonna go over installation instructions. I feel like a lot of you guys probably already know how to do that. But then, you know, one bolt goes in the bottom. These things are beefy. They are actually fairly heavy, to be honest with you, which I don't think really matters, as long as they perform well. So it's got 9 adjustments on, or 8, I guess it'd be not 8 adjustments, sorry. So it's got 8 adjustments on here. Once this thing's mounted, all you'll have to do is reach into the wheel well, and then you just rotate this knob around to adjust your stiffness. It's got a little white arrow right here. It tells you what you're on. And then right here on the side, it'll tell you the setting that you're on for firmness. 1 is the softest, 8 being the firmest. So now that we've unboxed this, I just want to go over with you real quick what I've done with my truck and why I've done it. So I own a commercial excavation company, so I pull quite a bit with my truck, which some of you guys are going to give me a hard time because I got 37-inch tires on this thing, and if you're pulling all the time, I would agree it's not optimal. But I've got the Nitto Ridge grapplers on here in 37s. I've got a 3, I think it was a 3 or 3.5 inch front end lift with 1.5 inches in the rear from Rough Country. Now I opted to go with it. I'm going to probably catch some criticism on this, but at the end of the day, a shock's a shock, whatever the brand name is. As long as it performs and does what I need it to do, I'm good with it. But if you look underneath here, let's see, I've got the Bilstein 5100s on the back end, and that's what I opted to go with. And the reason that I opted to go with that was because I am pulling a 32-foot gooseneck trailer. And when I pull that 32-foot gooseneck trailer, I've got anywhere from, I don't know, 14 or 15,000 on the trailer, and I think the trailer's around 7,500 itself. So, you know, I'm trying to do the math here, 22,000 pounds at minimum, trailer and equipment on it. And then every now and then we'll throw a little bit more on there, whether we got a roller or a mini or something, we'll throw on there as well. And so we can get up close to the 30,000 range, which isn't, I know I'm gonna catch some flack, it's not the greatest thing to do with a single axle. When we do it, we're not going very far with that kind of weight. As far as when we're running our 299 skid loader on there and whatnot, that machine's around 11 and some change. And then we got toolboxes, fuel tanks, things of that nature. By the time you add all that up, you're probably in the 13, 14,000 pound range. So that, not a big deal. We don't like to go much over that just because it isn't a dually truck. It is a single rear wheel. So I ended up going with the 5100s, and the reason I went with the 5100s in the rear was because they're just kind of a tried and proven shock for these trucks, but I wanted some adjustability in the front end. And the reason I wanted that was it's a 2500. At the end of the day, I know it's going to ride rough. I get it. I'm not trying to build a Baja truck here. I'm just simply trying to get a truck that I can kind of customize to what I want to do, because I do more with that truck than just pull trailers and go to work every day. I use it to go hunting. I use it to drive down the interstate and go visit family. I use it for a grocery getter. I mean, I use it as my everyday driver. So I wanted it to be able to perform in just more than one manner. So I have never ran a reservoir shock on a truck that you're pulling that much weight with. It may work fine, I don't know. I didn't want to risk it, and it wasn't like it was that much more money. It'd probably been another $500-600 to put these on the rear end, but I just didn't want to end up blowing out a reservoir from having too much weight. I do have airbags on the back, so it probably wouldn't have caused any issues, but I just wanted to do the front end just because I can feel with the shocks that came from Rough Country, there's a lot of bounce. So once I get taken off with the trailer, if I hit it, the back end will squat with the original Rough Country shocks, and it just wants to drop down, which causes a lot of unnecessary stress on the truck. So I went with the Bilsteins. I do think they ride better. I'd say they just ride, the quality feels better. I'm not going to tell you it's a smooth ride, because that'd be a lie if I told you that. It's a 2500. It's not going to ride smooth. If I wanted a smooth truck, I'd have bought a 1500. But my front end, once that back end kind of settles, my front end would bounce a little bit. And it's because those shocks that came with the lift from Rough Country were just not a very firm shock. You know, I think they were designed to almost be just a super soft shock to give you a good ride quality. But when you're in a 2500, it kind of does the opposite, in my opinion. It causes it to, you get a lot of wheel hop, you hit a washboard road, and your tires just don't want to stick to the ground. So there's a balance there where, you know, if you have too stiff of a shock, it's just going to beat you to death. Yeah, your tires are going to maintain traction on the ground, but it's just going to beat you to death. If you have a super soft shock, you're going to get bounced in the back end, and your tires are not going to react back down to the ground for traction as fast. So the front end was big for me just because I feel a lot of that in the steering wheel. I'll feel that clunkiness from those cheaper shocks in the steering wheel, and I want to try to eliminate that. So we're going to put these on, and we're going to see if that eliminates the problem. So stay tuned, and we'll get these things put on, and we'll go for a ride, and I'll give you my personal opinion. I can't obviously put the feel of these shocks through the camera to you guys, but I can at least tell you if it made a big difference over the standard shocks that come with the Rough Country lift, which on that note, those shocks are about $30 a piece online. So I know Rough Country is just trying to be competitive in the market of lifts. They want to be able to provide you, you know, a 3-inch leveling kit with an 1.5-inch lift in the rear, and then give you a shock that will perform with that lift at a reasonable price. They do have the option to upgrade to these. I did not. Hindsight, I kind of wish I would have, but I did not initially do that just because I thought, well, let's give them a shot. Let's see how they feel. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of them, but that's okay. It's a budgetary shock. I knew that going into it, and figured I'd give them a shot. So let's go ahead and get these things installed. I'm not going to go over the installation. We're just going to go right into the ride quality, and I'm going to give you my personal opinion. Thanks, guys. All right, shocks are on. So we've been riding around for about a week now. The initial video that I did on this was just so that you guys could see the unboxing of the shocks, see what came with it, and kind of what the shock looked like outside of the truck, so you knew what you were getting into. Super simple to put on. Took about 10-15 minutes each side was it. It was 2 nuts, 1 bolt, throw them back up in there, and then you just had to run the hose clamps around the outsides of the reservoirs that go up top. And I'm telling you, it's super easy. It's definitely a DIY. You don't have to be a professional to do this. By no means am I a super mechanic, and I slap these things on in no time. So super easy. Anybody can do it. And let's take a look at what we got here real quick. So shocks are pretty sweet. I like them. We'll go over the ride quality and kind of what I think about them, but first, appearance of the shock in there actually looks pretty cool. Looks different than most shocks. The one thing I will tell you is make sure that you have this nipple far enough down that this reservoir is rotated. If it's not, if it's sticking out in any manner, or you don't have this going straight up and down, your tire, if you have any oversized tires, will hit on this nipple. So learn a lesson there. It took me about 2 seconds. I just undid each one of these hose clamps, rotated it, and tightened it back up, and that was it. That was on the passenger side that I had a little bit of rubbing there. So wasn't an issue. Took just a couple seconds to fix that. But for anybody here that's looking to get some of these, make sure you rotate that down. It'll save you a little bit of time in the long run. So today, this obviously is not a extreme off-roading vehicle. I mean, it's got a fuel tank in it, for goodness sakes. So it's not an off-road vehicle. But like I told you guys earlier, I do a lot of hunting in this truck, a lot of pulling and grocery getting. So I do a lot with this thing, and I just want to I want to give you guys a little bit of an off-road capability on how these shocks perform and what I think about them and how it feels in the steering wheel. I'll also go over my thoughts on the highways and what setting I went with and kind of what my ride feels like with something like that, so you guys can get kind of an idea. I know I told you earlier that, you know, this is a 2500. I'm not expecting this to ride like a 1500. I'm not expecting it to ride like a car. I'm not expecting any of that, but I definitely would like to be able to adjust it to my comfort level the best that the truck can do. And so I found that the Vertexes at 800 bucks were worth the gamble versus going with Kings or Fox. So let's take a look and see how this thing does. We're going to be going up this hill right here. Like I said, it's nothing crazy. It's not even really that steep, but it's got a little bit of rockiness to it, a little bit of unevenness to the trail. And then once you get up to the top here, we get into a little bit of just kind of shell, and it's just got some shell going through it with a bunch of tree roots. So I think it'll be a true testament for basic off-roading that you're going to do with any type of, you know, 2500 pickup that I would do anyway. Some of you guys out there might be running 2500s and ball hauling with them in the 1000, but not here. So, you know, mine's mainly job sites, coyote hunting, and grocery getting. So let's just go up this hill real quick. We'll take a look at how it does and go from there. drive, and we are gonna see how these shocks feel going up this hill. So let's take a look. I can tell you it's much rougher in the back end than it is the front end, which generally is to be expected. I don't hear a bunch of rattling and clunking in the front end like I did before. Most of the rattling and shaking that I'm feeling is definitely coming from the back end, not the front. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a little bit in the front end, but for the most part, it's all in the back. So that was the first time that I wouldn't even call that necessarily off-roading. I would just call that being the roughest terrain that I have been on yet with the truck. You know, it had a bunch of shell rock in it and whatnot. So I'll tell you, I think it handled, you know, extremely well on that. It definitely felt better than the other ones. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this is the end-all be-all. These shocks are not the end-all be-all. 2500 pickups are going to ride rough. You're never going to get away from it. It's always going to have some sort of you know, rough ride to it, unless you spend thousands and thousands of dollars to do something to your truck to make it not do that. And if you're doing that to your truck, you're probably not using it to pull heavy weights like we are. So I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm just saying your everyday average truck owner that owns a 2500, 3500 truck, it's always going to ride rough on you. So here in just a second, I want to go over what settings I have it on, why I have them there, and try to tell you, I got a pretty good idea of how to explain to you the ride quality of this truck with these shocks compared to the other ones. So it'll give you kind of an idea of what kind of firmness you're going to get up front. So going up that hill just now, I was on setting number 3. I just kept it on my kind of everyday setting. I have found that number 1 does not perform the way I want it to perform. And the reason that I don't think it performs as well is because it's almost too soft, which some might argue and say, well, wouldn't that be great? Well, yeah, but your nose dives down. You do get a little bit of chatter just because it's such a soft setting. I didn't like it. Went to 2. Went away a little bit, went to 3, loved it, went to 4. 4 is still a really good setting, in my opinion. I liked 4, but I felt like 3 was right there in between a 1500 and a 2500, if that makes any sense. So, you know, it didn't ride quite as smooth as maybe a 1500 would or right at it, but it was definitely better riding than what a 2500 is. So that 3 setting is what I've gone with. I like that setting. I put them to 9 for a little bit, and I don't recommend it. It's rough. It'll beat you up and rattle you around. So anything I'm doing, unless I plan on chasing a coyote at 70 mile an hour across the cornfield, the shocks would probably hold up better than the suspension would, but not going to happen. The 9s are just not going to be for this truck. So probably I'll never put it on that setting. I did it just to see what it was like, and it's rough. So 3s is what I have found to work the best in these. On the highways, I'm noticing a much smoother ride when you start hitting the little black strips, you know, in the roadway where they've either repaired it or the seams where the concrete connects. A lot of that jolting and chattering is gone when you hit those. It just coasts right over them. I am noticing it in the back end with the Bilstein 5100s. I'm not knocking that shock. I'm just saying it feels more like a 2500. And I expect it. Still rides good. Still rides better than the N3s from Rough Country did. But it definitely, you can feel it much more in the back end than you can the front end. Where before I was feeling it in the back and in the front. We've completely eliminated that almost in the front end. And it rides a million times better, guys. I will tell you that I definitely think these shocks are worth the money. And if you're looking to get into some Vertex, I highly recommend going and getting a set. I told you I can't compare them to Kings. I can't compare them to Foxes. Haven't had any of those. But as far as the uses that I use this truck for, I have definitely found that these are a good investment and that they were worth every penny to me. If anything, they look cool. I mean, whatever. But I can't just go for looks. I got to go for practicality too. So yeah, so anyways, I have not called Rough Country. I did consider calling them and talking to them about running these in the rear end, pulling the weight that I pull with this truck, and seeing what they say. I'm sure they're not going to give me some guarantee, but they should be able to tell me, hey, yeah, they would work, or no, they wouldn't. I don't see why they wouldn't work. I didn't pull the trigger initially just because with the fittings and the hoses, I didn't want to have a bunch of weight on that bed coming down on those shocks. I don't know. There's more going on with these than there is just a standard monotube shock. And so having all that weight back there just made me a little bit nervous. I do have airbags in this truck, and anytime I pull, I'm bumping those up to, 45, 60 PSI, depending on how much weight I've got on here. So having those airbags kind of take over for those shocks shouldn't hurt anything, but I didn't do it yet. I'm not telling you I'm not gonna, but I didn't do it yet. If I do it, I will make a video about it, and I will tell you how they ride and how they perform with a trailer behind you. I just can't speak on it. Never done it. I'm sure some of you guys out there have. If you have done it, drop in the comments. Tell us what you guys are experiencing, and let me know, hey, they're pulling fine. We're pulling heavy loads. We got, reservoir shocks in the back end, no issues whatsoever. That'd be great to know. So started with the front, may or may not go to the back. Well, hey, I want to say thank you to everybody and for supporting the channel. We are a new channel, so thank you for your support. Thank you for the subscribers. If you like the video, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and until next time, take care.